What's up, YouTube? This is Design Jedi, and I found an article this morning. I thought I'd do a video on it. It's from Gizmodo. The new Star Trek show is a chance to Last Jedi the hell out of Captain Picard. Star Trek Las Vegas 2018 confirmed a huge piece of news for the Trek universe last weekend. The rumors were true, and Sir Patrick Stewart would be returning to the television to reprise his role as an older, wiser Jean-Luc Picard in a new Star Trek series. We know little else about the series beyond that, but I really hope it does for Picard what Star Wars The Last Jedi did for Luke Skywalker. That sort of hoping might rankle longtime Trek fans. In fact, many of them have spent the last few days desperately hoping for a direct opposite of Star Trek The Last Jedi. They've read Stewart's own statement that the new show's Picard would be a man who has been changed by his experiences and shuddered at the mere thought of a disillusioned, weary Picard roaming around an isolated family vineyard swigging freshly squeezed targ milk. They already had to go through one traumatic fictional upheaval. Why wish that for another old hero? Why can't Picard just be the same Picard we saw in TNG and the movies? Because that would be kind of boring for starters. I don't think so, man. I would love to see Picard back in his old role. I don't want them to do something crazy like The Last Jedi. I really don't. As someone who loved the disillusioned bent of The Last Jedi, you are crazy. And especially in the way they brought Luke's journey to an end, that was horrible. I'd love the new Picard series to do something similar. Not directly, literally, of course. Jean-Luc doesn't have to pass on at the end of it, the way Luke quietly dissipates into the Force in The Last Jedi. But in terms of having heroes who so wholly represent the greatest ideas of their respective franchises go through a trauma that leaves them changed and conflicted, a conflict that lets them grow and develop as deeper characters, while reminding us of the grand ideas that while reminding us of the grand ideals that they represent. Hell yes. Especially because the new Star Trek show has another fascinating opportunity it can't waste. It's set 20 years after Nemesis, so 2,399 fans, which means it's the farthest into the future of the main timeline a Star Trek TV show has ever gone. Our first canonical image of Star Trek Galaxy previously only touched in novels and Star Trek Online, but it also means it's set about 20 years after one of the most cataclysmic events that we know in the Star Trek timeline, the Dominion War. What Picard and the rest of the TNG crew went through during the war is relatively unknown. Some of the non-canon Trek novels covered the Enterprise E's role in the war, and the closest we have otherwise are Insurrection and Nemesis, movies that are set in the years just after the conflict, but also, understandably, had their own threats to deal with. We don't get the time to see how these characters are changed by a conflict that rocks Starfleet and the Federation to the core, that shakes the moral foundations that a captain like Picard not only holds dear, but in the eyes of many Trek fans is practically a living embodiment of them. 20 years is a decent chunk of time after the end of the Dominion War for Jean-Luc to be removed from the initial chaos of the conflict. If we're keeping our Last Jedi comparison rolling, Luke only spent up to 6-ish years in exile after his Academy destruction to reflect if the Federation that exists in 2,399 is still the idealist utopia it was before one of the bloodiest wars in history, and if he himself can still live up to that ideal. Because really, unless the reason this Picard is different is because he's a completely different man altogether, isn't that sort of moral questioning something Jean-Luc Picard we know would love to go through in the wake of the event as earth-shattering as a full-scale interstellar war? It's not like Star Trek hasn't put him through the moral ringer in the past. Challenging the ideals that the Federation holds dear is what the franchise does at its best. Part of what makes Picard one of Star Trek's most adored characters is that no matter the situation, his moral core never wavers. And it's not like Trek hasn't been used war in really bringing this moral conflict to the forefront. Either First Contact's most defining moment comes when Jean-Luc teeters on the edge of letting his urge to vengeance on the Borg overwhelm him, the moment we get to see him so close to falling from that moral center. A new show has a chance to bring the moral debate to the forefront again. Give us a Picard that so deeply shaken perhaps did falter for a while, only to have to go through finding himself again, whether it's through introspection or seeing hope in a new generation of Starfleet heroes after him, as Luke did with Rey. There could be nothing more affirming of Trek's long-held ideals than seeing their greatest champion stray away from the path, be horrified by that, and inevitably return to it. Wouldn't that be a much more interesting journey to experience than Captain Picard doing the same old things he was doing decades ago, with nothing changing about the impossibility rare wrinkle on Star Trek's astonishingly timeless vintage? But yeah, we can probably skip the fresh targ milk swinging. That might be a bit too much. Hell yeah, it might be a bit too much. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about the new series. I hope to hell it doesn't do what this guy is saying and retcon, everything that happened in TNG and the movies. It'd be nice to see a new Picard, but at the end of the last movie, Nemesis, we see him sitting in a new captain's chair getting ready to go out into the world. Now, I'd like to see some of the old TNG cast reprise their roles and come on the show. I assume it would be a lot like All Good Things, But anyway, that's all I got for right now. Talk to you later.